Athens. And we're going to have the trial of Socrates. It is a capital case which involves the death penalty. More about that will be said later. And representing the state is Anytus, portrayed by, also known as Lisa. And for the defense is Plato, represented by Jim over there. And the rest of you will be members of the jury. And in this case, we follow as much of the this Greek procedure as possible, but also interject some of the other things as well, in that there will be an opening statement. The opening statement will be by the prosecutor, and then an opening statement by the defense, and then the prosecutor will lay out the case for the particular charges. And if there are any questions during her presentation, simply signal that you have a question, something is not clear, you're not sure, whatever, or you can wait to the end, in which there will be a closing or a summation or address to the jury by the prosecutor and then by the defense. And the prosecutor can also, after defense gives their closing statement, have another statement. They get 2 bites at the apple at the end, because the burden of proof resides with them, and the burden of proof, again, they have to present no case at all. No opening statement, no nothing, because they have no burden of proof. The presumption is, as they come in, that they are in fact innocent. The one who makes the charge has to produce the evidence. Then, at the end of that, we will then submit the case to the jury, which of course does not involve Lisa and Jim, although they will try to wiggle their way in there. We have security here that will keep them out. What I would ask you to do is, after they are finished and before you get together for your deliberation, I want you to write down, very simple, guilty or not guilty. Guilty or not guilty. After we say, okay, jury, it's yours. The case is handed or submitted to you. Just write down guilty or not guilty. Then, don't tell anybody. That's yours. Then after your deliberation, which we're not going to take a long time, about 5 minutes or something like that, 10 or whatever, then what I want you to do is, and it has to be a majority, not like now where it has to be unanimous, especially in the death penalty case, but it simply has to be a majority. And we know that in the trial of Socrates, the pool of jurors numbered 500 of the pool. All men, because of course we're talking about Greek jurisprudence and procedure back in 399 BC. So we don't want to get ourselves all lathered up over the fact that there are no women on the jury and all this other sort of stuff. If we can just put all of that aside for a moment, and let's just stick within this time, because remember, you're on the time machine. So if you start dragging your 21st century in there, you will be ruled out of order, held in contempt, and dismissed. No, I've taken that back. You won't be dismissed. You will have to stay to do all of this. You see, that'll calm you down. But anyway, so we will proceed that particular way, and I will just sit there taking notes, and hopefully you will take notes upon what they say and have questions for them. Or you can ask for clarifications, etc. And then after we get the final verdict, we then will have what what was the jury doing? What did they think? Why did they think that way? Why did they vote? And did anybody change? If you went in guilty, did you come out guilty? After hearing them, you know, or did how were you disposed? So we will do that. So now we will begin with the opening statement by Anarchus, better known as Lisa, for the state, the city-state or the civic municipality of Athens that is bringing the charges against Socrates.
Before we begin, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background information as to what was going on at that time, as to why this was so important. At the beginning of his trial, Athens was a city in turmoil, struggling to recover from the devastating effects of the Peloponnesian War, which they lost lots of money, lost their navy. Politically, it was marked by instability and the recent trauma of oligarchic rule. And in fact, that was caused by two of Socrates' former students, but that couldn't be brought up in trial. Economically, it was suffering from the war's fallout and leading to hardship and social discontent. And so in this atmosphere, he was being put to trial. And so he was an easy target for society seeking to restore order and reaffirm its traditional beliefs. His trial was as much a product of these broader political and economic anxieties as it was about the specific charges brought against him. And as Father said, it was 500 men. And just to let you know that most of those men were farmers, and they were chosen by lot. Okay. That caused anarchy. They, for a brief time, Athens actually lost its democracy. They led revolts and charged, so Athens was not democratic for a short while.
Father, just a comment on that. Was it 500 or 501? I read somewhere it was 501, so there'd be somebody to break the tie.
I don't know.
It was both of those go back and forth. The consistent number overall is 500, but there is a mention of 501, and but it doesn't matter because it wasn't necessary anyway in the final outcome, which we will not tell you, and hopefully you didn't find out. If you did, then you should recuse yourself because you are not giving. You are prejudiced, and you should disqualify yourself. You can sit here and listen, but you should disqualify yourself. You don't belong here. So.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we stand today in the esteemed court of Athens, a city renowned for its commitment to justice and democracy, to address a matter of utmost gravity. The defendant, Socrates, a man known far and wide for his intellect and influence, stand accused of two serious charges: corrupting the youth of our beloved city and asebia, or impiety, by introducing new deities and disregarding the pantheon of gods and goddesses recognized by the state. His teachings and methods, veiled in the guise of intellectual inquiry, have led our youth astray. His incessant questioning undermines the moral fabric of our society, encouraging young minds to doubt the very principles that bind us together as a community and to question all those in leadership. His influence has sown seeds of discontent and rebellion, eroding the respect for tradition and authority that is vital for our collective harmony. Moreover, Socrates has shown a blatant disregard for our revered gods, including Athena, our city's patroness, the goddess of wisdom, by introducing new deities and questioning the existence and power of the traditional gods of Athens. He has not only disrespected our religion, but has also jeopardized the spiritual well-being of our city. In a time when the favor of the gods is crucial for our prosperity and security, such actions are nothing short of sacrilege. The prosecution will present compelling evidence and testimony that will illustrate the detrimental impact of Socrates' actions on our youth and the religious sanctity of our society. We will demonstrate that his teachings are not merely harmless philosophical exercises, but are instead a direct threat to the political stability and moral integrity of Athens. Today we ask you, the jury, to see through the eloquence and cunning arguments that Socrates and his cohorts may present, and to recognize the true danger he poses. In defense of our city's values, traditions, and divine reverence, we seek your judgment and the imposition of the just consequences that his actions warrant. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Plato, you can come up here, please.
Well, first of all, I firmly deny these ridiculous charges against me. But at this time, I'm going to withhold my response until I actually hear the evidence against me, and I'll respond
It's not
to that
against you.
evidence.
It's not against you. It's against Socrates. You're Plato.
Okay.
You're defending him.
Right.
Okay.
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 I should have mentioned that to start with. Yeah. Socrates didn't have a defense attorney. He defended himself. And so I'm making my presentation as if I am Socrates.
Okay. So you are deferring, or you are giving up a statement, other than a concluding statement at this time. Okay.
Later, after I hear the
Okay. All right. Yes. Socrates defended himself. We have no transcript of any of that, but we do have Plato's Apology. Okay, which is the defense of Plato. Okay, it is the defense of Plato. In other words, the dialogues are the defense of Plato after the fact. Okay, you understand? In other words, if a trial takes place, you're found guilty, but I write all kind of things saying that you're innocent. Okay, so you have four primary sources of defense. There is a defense for Plato. I mean, for Socrates. Got me saying for the defense of Socrates. Number one is Xenophon's defense. Xenophon. Xenophon's defense, entitled Apology of Socrates to the Jury. That's the first one. You have Plato's Apology, in the Phaedo, Phaedo, and you have Euthro, Euthyphro, Socratic apology. So you have those apologies and those defenses being offered in defense of Socrates. And I don't want to say too much. I mean, I'm not laying out the case for Socrates, which is what I end up doing. What I'm saying is that these are the primary sources of those after the fact. This is what some lawyers call rehabilitation. In other words, if you have a client on the stand and they mess up, or they're not allowed to finish, or they didn't quite answer it, and so on, you then and it's your direct witness, it's your witness, and you haven't impeached your witness. In other words, you haven't treated him as hostile. You can redirect. If you redirect, the defense has the opportunity to redirect as well. In other words, it's not, you got to have an even thing. The attorney can always say, I don't, no more questions. Okay, well, then it's over. So you have the Socratic apology, and in these are the defenses. The actual indictment of Socrates, as Lisa's so well pointed out, doesn't come into play until 392, when you actually have the formal indictment. BC, by the way, so we're running down to 0. And it's called simply the indictment of Socrates. And well, I'm not going to go into any more of that because that's not my role here. Anyone else have any questions at this point? Comments, things not clear, clarifications? Well, what do you have?
I have Xenophon's defense.
Yes.
Plato's apology.
Yes.
I missed the third one. I have
Euthyphro, and that's called Socratic apology. Socratic apology. You have Xenophon, you have Plato, and you have yeah, Euthyphro, Xenophon, and Plato. See, that's 3. That's 3 separate individuals, right? Huh? What do you have? What is the?
I thought there were 4. I misunderstood. I thought there were 4.
Okay, let's try this again. Here we go. Apology of Socrates to the jury. Are we there? That's Xenophon. Xenophon. We have Euthyphro. Euthyphro. Socratic apology. We have Phaedo, Phaedo, by Plato. And you have the apology by Plato. Okay? You're welcome. Is that clear? Okay. So everybody has that. All right.
So getting back to our two
Yes,
charges.
yes.
The first one is impiety. That Socrates doesn't believe that the gods control many things, such as the sun and the moon. He thinks that they are merely masses of stone. As far as the other one, corrupting our youth, he often tells our youth to question everything that their parents, teachers, politicians, religious and business leaders have told them. He told Anidas' son not to go into canning business of his father, considering it a servile occupation. And as you know, fathers like to pass on their businesses to their sons.
Mm-hmm.
He also, again, going back to impiety, he believes in a single God or deity that is perfectly good and perfectly wise. His God is rationally moral and has a purpose. And we all know that he stands in the agora almost on a daily basis, questioning anyone that will entertain him or listen. And he does so in a condescending manner because he tries to show you how stupid you are. Right. So again, the two charges are impiety and corrupting our youth.
Okay, now, do you have any witnesses? Do you have any witnesses? Well, who brought these charges? You have no witnesses. I mean, is this just your supposition of this? I mean, the rest of you should be thinking about this, not me, because I'm too active here. You need to say something. In other words, she gets up here, you got this poor fellow over here, Plato, who thinks he's Socrates, and now the question becomes, she makes all these charges against him. Do you want to know anything?
What is he instigating the youth to do? Literally, like, defy their parents and defy the system of education?
Yes. In fact, like I said, he told Ananias' son not to even go into his father's business. And then the other two, and I don't have their names written down, that they actually overthrew the government, and those were two of his former students.
So he's believed to have counseled these former students to instigate a rebellion.
Yes.
Is that what he's being charged with?
Well, yes.
Was he defying, were they defying their parents, or were they just questioning their parents?
Oh,
And then the
Impiety.
so he kept saying there should be one God, and that goes against the general thought of God that there's many gods,
yes.
many stars,
And his God showed reason and knowledge to control, to define how the world existed.
Yes. His God is a perfectly good and wise God. In fact, Socrates does not believe that, like the gods of the pantheon, that they control every aspect of human life. That there is a higher being, but yet he doesn't necessarily control us.
In other words, he believed that his God allowed free will.
Yes.
and Socrates tell one answer to satisfaction.
I'm sure he did not answer it to their satisfaction. That's why they put him on trial. Yes.
Jim, do you find any troubling things about her presentation, her handling of this?
Well, so far I don't really hear any actual evidence.
So how do you know that there is a rebellion in the youth? What evidence are you seeing that there is a rebellion of the youth?
Many parents have brought forth complaints that they're once obedient and once obedient children.
Well, if you're sitting, if you're Socrates, Socrates' attorney, and she's getting up here saying, we have all these reports, we have all this complaints, we have these people, and so on. What might you ask?
Where are your people to say what is happening? Where are your witnesses?
Where's the evidence?
Do you have anybody?
No.
Well, there is one person. There is one person that's named.
Ananias and.
No, he doesn't come.
Okay.
That's you.
Yes.
So we hope you have a complaint.
Well then, again, whether it's factual or not, I could say happy with my own son.
No,
Okay.
I'm interested in,
Okay.
is there a person by name who has made these allegations against Socrates?
I can find his name, something with an M.
Yes, Miletus,
Yes.
Meletus, Miletus.
Is a witness to what the youth are doing?
He's
Who
one
is
of the main-
Miletus? Who is Miletus?
He's the one that makes the charges.
That's right. And now, he's the one who makes the charges. What do you want to know about Miletus? Come on, think, folks.
Does Miletus have something that he wants to prove Socrates is unfit, that he allowed the right to say what he believes?
Very good.
Is there a connection,
Yes.
which is?
Well, he first brought these charges against like an informal inquiry, through just like a meeting with other peers, and the person presiding over that said, yes, I do think there's merit to go to a full trial.
Miletus, a student of Socrates, or was he a parent?
A parent.
Miletus was a student.
Oh, he was.
Miletus was a student who studied under Socrates. Does
Did
that?
not do well in his class?
Very good question. In other words, what we're getting at here is, you see how easy it is to make an accusation? I mean, you ought to know that. You all live on the computers. You can write anything you want on the computer. You don't have to sign it. You don't have to have an attribution. You don't have to have anything. You can write all kind of things on there about somebody. And what is an indictment? What is an indictment?
An indictment is a belief that this person has broken the law.
It's an accusation. That's right. It's an accusation. See, so many people believe, oh, it's an indictment. He's guilty. No. No, an indictment is only the starting of the process. That's why, in these cases, you go before a grand jury. And the grand jury is often referred to as the prosecutor's jury, for obvious reasons. As the old saying goes, when you go to the grand jury, you can get a ham sandwich and a slice of bread and get an indictment on it. Because it's completely run by, it's all one-sided, in favor of the prosecution to go forward. Even if the grand jury brings forth a bill of indictment, that itself is not a conviction. It's not a conviction. It simply means it should go to a full trial. Because there's nothing full there. There's nothing full there at all. This is laying it out to say, yeah, we people on the grand jury believe you can go for, yeah, go ahead, get it out of here, and go throw it in some court. Okay? Mm-hmm.
No.
No.
Did Socrates fail of Miletus in his coursework?
Well, at that time, and I'm sorry. Again, look, it's difficult because it's difficult for both of these people. Jim has a client, okay, who really has basically left nothing. And kind of has these people after the fact defending him, or what records we have of this. The prosecutor has these accusations, etc., but seems to be very thin on actual physical evidence of it. So many of the questions you ask are questions that they cannot answer, because either they weren't answered then, or they weren't asked, or there was no direct evidence, not hearsay, but they have to have direct evidence of this themselves. Well, certainly Miletus, would you consider him a credible witness on the surface? He's a student in his class. Is he a credible witness?
I would say no.
Why? He's in the class. Yes. Why wouldn't he be?
Well,
On the surface, I said.
on the surface, yeah.
Yes, on the surface he would be. No. You're right. No. He is, because he is the only one we have by name who has direct experience with Socrates. I got complaints. Oh, okay. What, you got up on the wrong side of the bed and you don't like the way the toast was buttered or something like, I don't know. No. And again, you don't have to be this forensic people running all around the place and all this nonsense. Is there anyone who has direct contact with Socrates that has come forward? Only him. Okay. No. You mean of all the people that that Socrates taught, he's the only one? Well, that doesn't disqualify him, because nobody else came forward. Because now we're going to impute motives to why other people didn't come forward. Maybe they don't care. Remember, the students at that time, they're really more like disciples. They're not getting a grade. They're not going on to some promotion and job and all of this kind of stuff. They're there for their own enlightenment, their own development, etc. So there's no grades, there's no coursework, there's none of this kind of stuff. It's kind of a free association. Plato was, interestingly enough, he was very much of a renegade. He was a rebel. Why? Because he founded what was called the Academy, the first forerunner of the university, called the Academia, which was related to an olive grove. They were growing. What is the connection between the Academy and the olive grove? Well, that's where they met, in an olive grove. It was outside. You didn't have chalkboards, smart boards, dumb boards, any other kind of boards that you have. And Plato did something that was shocking. He allowed women and slaves to go to the academy. Women and slaves, by the way. Okay? And both of those designations could, at times, reside in the same person. It could be a woman slave. Okay? So you have that in consideration. But with this Miletus, we have his accusations. Now, would there be anything we would want to ask Lisa about him? She may or may not be able to answer through no fault of her own.
Was he a good student of Socrates?
There's no record of that.
Obviously, he didn't believe in his, when he was trying to sell him or teach him.
Well, maybe he did because he's questioning authorities, even questioning Socrates.
Very good.
Was his dad a critic?
I think most of the parents were critics of Socrates once their students, once their children.
How long was he a student of Socrates?
I know that.
See, these things we don't know. There is no. We don't have the we don't have the autobiography
There's no
of these
record.
people or the biographical information. We don't have, in other words, what we don't have is we don't have the rules of evidence like we have today. We don't have a court stenographer. We don't have any of those things. Okay?
Socrates didn't write down anything, so we don't have any of his notes.
So you see, when Jim sits there and is silent, two things. Number one, he has nothing to say because they have nothing there. But he doesn't have to have the proof. He's the one being accused. He doesn't need anything. See, so we need not, again, he didn't even make an opening statement. But he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to. There you go. And you got to decide whether she's a prosecutor or a persecutor. Today it's difficult to tell. But anyway, the dialogue that we have, the one that's the most known, is the apology by Plato. That's the one. And so we have this. Jim, were you aware that Socrates was offered a plea bargain deal? No. Were you aware that you made one?
Yes.
And what was it?
So if I'm trying to remember, I think, well, I forgot what the plea was, but Socrates tried to, like, downplay it and, like, pay a fine.
Play it fine.
And they said he could pay a fine if he wanted to pay just, like, one, whatever it was, and they thought that was insulting, and he refused. He tried to downplay it, and they said no. I
Yes.
forgot what else, but yes.
Yeah, he was going to pay.
they
The
said
original
it was
offer was
30.
100
Oh, okay.
100 drachma. Think of it in terms of dollars, a $100 bond. Well, that wasn't going to fly with, the prosecutor-persecutor here. No. So the final agreement was $3,000 or 3,000 drachma. And what did Socrates say to that?
I think he said he'd pay one.
What did he say to paying a fine?
I don't remember.
Well, he said no. And was there any plans made to extradite Socrates? Yeah, any plans by his friends to get him away from from the place? To have him escape, in other words. It's essential part of the trial. Was there? Are you aware of any?
I think
Any
they
plan?
did talk about it, but I think he refused because I think he'd rather either die than leave.
Why? What was his motive for that? Are you aware that he had been given a plea agreement, or authored one anyway? Okay. What wouldn't be the truth? What was the reason why he stayed?
Because he believed what he was saying. I would think.
Yes. Yes. Okay. And what else in a larger sense? Yeah. What you say is, I mean, yeah. No. A larger sense. No. Up here somewhere.
Because he wanted to establish his philosophy as appropriate for humanity.
Uh-huh.
He believed
Yes.
that he had the explanation and what was being presented as acceptable by the people or who were his accusers was wrong.
And one of his other beliefs was that if he was a good person, that he couldn't be harmed, even though he may suffer and even suffer death, because his virtue would remain intact.
That's a very good point. That's one. What else? In relation to the city? Yes. Yes, he's on trial by the city, by the state, He's there.
Because I think he said something to the effect that even in his death, that Athens would be the one that would lose out, not him.
I will discuss that in my
Okay. Well, let's leave that alone. Good. Okay. Because that's an important thing. We understand Socrates is 70 years old at this time. He's 70 years old. So he's eligible for Social Security. Not that I guess he's got to worry about it. And you're seeking the death penalty.
Yes.
How is that arrived at? How did you arrive at that idea of the death penalty?
Because his teachings and his corrupting the youth are detrimental to the political and religious stability of Athens. And so as to put down any other insurrection, basically, he had to be made an example of.
Is he being accused of treason for the beliefs of Athens?
No.
Of Athenians?
He's being charged with impiety, which is basically almost like blasphemy. He's a threat to them politically and religiously, just as Jesus was.
Why isn't he being accused of treason? Maria wants him locked up for treason. Why isn't he being accused of treason? What is treason? What is treason? Betrayal. To what? Betrayal of your country to
Another country.
another country, to the enemy. Is he accused? Is he doing that? Who's the enemy? Sparta. That's right. Is he accused of selling state secrets to the Spartans?
No.
No. Is he accused of spying for the Spartans?
No.
None of that. How?
Because it's fomenting discontent in Athens.
So he is being accused of January 6th. Let's see, where are you? Yes, I'm ready to jump out the window. Come on. What is on January the 6th, folks? What are they accused of? They're not accused of treason. Insurrection. Insurrection, yes. And after all, what do you hear? The riot, the invasion of the Capitol, all this kind of stuff. Although they have difficulty explaining why the Capitol Police were directing people into the Capitol. But nonetheless, we don't worry about that, do we? So that's what he's doing. Which brings us back to why. But by the way, how is the death penalty carried out?
By forcing him to drink hemlock. So it's a forced suicide.
You agree with that? Is it forced, Jim? And what did you say, Sam? Why? He is. We've established through Maria that he his thing is insurrection. Insurrection is the what? What is an insurrectionist? What is insurrection? Yes. Let the prosecutor get in here. Okay. So that. Why, if that's what he is either directly or indirectly being accused of, why does he refuse? I'm not paying a fine. I'm not going to let people smuggle me out of the jail. And I am going to take the hemlock. Against the backdrop of he's an insurrectionist.
Forever show that they were not getting along. He's speaking the truth.
It's different what he believed. He thought he was telling the truth to everyone.
Let him alone for a minute. No, stay with me. Look, pretend you're a basketball team, okay? Don't pay attention of how I say it. Pay attention to what I'm saying, okay? I get excited, not frustrated. I'm trying to draw you into this. I can sit up here like a monolith and just, yeah, right, okay, next. No, I'm sorry. Because this has relevance for the day, and it has relevance for the thinking process. Otherwise, we're wasting our time here. So, my point is, the ugly thing of insurrection has been resurrected by Maria as different from treason. Okay. Could he have paid the fine? Could he have escaped? Could he have refused to take the hemlock? Could he have refused it? Yes. Could have paid it, taken the plea deal. Could have escaped. Could have refused, take the hemlock. All that. But I didn't. I did none of those things. How does that feed into the question of he being an insurrectionist? Because both of those charges, as Maria has indicated, bump right up against the question of insurrection. You insurrect by doing what, first of all?
By going against the political beliefs of the state.
And you do that how? What's the most effective way to get...
to bring others into with it with
yeah,
you.
especially
So the youth.
especially the youth. That's very important. You don't have to go back centuries, just a few decades. When Mao wanted the great leap forward, remember the Cultural Revolution in China? What did they start out with? Who?
Universities.
Yes. And what did they all carry around? The little red book. Okay? All of the programs and everything. Okay? And the Great Leap Forward was a disaster. A total, complete disaster that they had to get rid of. But they couldn't do anything because old Mao was still mowing around. Okay? But slowly they began to evolve out of that. Okay. My point being that he's accused of throwing the gasoline on the fire, and the fuel, what is the fuel?
The youth.
The youth. The youth are the fuel. The second thing is, what's the second charge?
Impiety. Going
Impiety.
against the gods, going against their established religion.
So notice what he's accused of. He's accused of undermining the political establishment, the political order, the tradition, the elders, all of that. And even worse, he's accused of undermining the moral and spiritual foundation of the society. You see? So therefore, now that we have established that, the two charges are, the question comes back, why did he not pay the fine? Why didn't he do the escape? And why did he freely take the hemlock?
Because his life was going to be a testament against the false narrative that political ruler.
He did it in such a way that did what, though? What did it do?
Just the truth.
Yeah.
Stood up for his principles.
He stood up for his principles, and in doing so, what did he do in terms of the civic establishment? Wonderful. He managed to do both at one time. He managed to evoke respect for the civil authorities. He submitted to it. If I took this thing, this plea deal, if I refuse, I'm undermining the foundation of the society. I'm undermining it. I'm showing that they corrupt and it's terrible and it's this and that. And then what is the charge? Insurrection. If I do those things, what am I doing? I'm undermining it. I am an insurrectionist, for God's sake. Don't you see that? But this is Martin Luther King letter from a Birmingham jail, why he did not simply accept, get out of jail. They wanted you out of there, go away. And he said, I'm not leaving. I'm staying. I refuse to leave. Yes. He brought attention to it. He brought attention to it by then activating the conscience and the consciousness of the people. This is exactly what Socrates is doing. If he accepted a plea deal, we knew it. Oh yeah, all this virtue talk and all of this kind of stuff, hey, hold your principles, stand your ground, all of that. Oh yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, great. Oh, by the way, I'd like $100. Oh yeah. Well, no, it's 3,000. Oh God, well, look, we're gonna get you out of here. Oh, okay, when are we going? Hemlock. I'm not taking that. I refuse to take that. I'm going to make a big deal out of it. What did honorable citizens do who are convicted of a capital crime? Honorable citizens, even though they may disagree, what did they do to legitimate the civic order of things? They took the hemlock. He is at once being prophetic and at once being priestly. He is giving them the double whammy in that one witness. You say I'm an insurrectionist? There's all kind of ways I could have insurrected. All kind of ways I could have left. All kind of ways I would have been a phony in everybody's eyes. No. What is the consequence of that for him? He dies. He dies. He's a person of integrity. He died as he lived. He died what has he taught. See? So he is calling attention without undermining the civic order. He's not saying this is illegitimate. He's letting his example speak to the conscience and the consciousness of the people. If he had left, if he took a plea deal, who would really listen to him anymore? Nobody. He's just another windbag with all these highfalutin things, but he doesn't want it. He doesn't want it. So he's doing both. He's doing both by that. He refused to denounce the civic order. He refused to denounce the city order. Does he take the hemlock? Yes, he does. Yes, he does. See? He's not force-fed. Not force-fed. And do we have the last words of Socrates recorded? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. You could be the foreman, the enforcer too. I'd listen to you, believe me. Oh my God, I'd listen to you right away. Well, in that, huh? Well, his final words are a speech. Everybody wants to know the final words of somebody, you know? And you've heard the story, haven't you? Back in the Middle Ages. It's very important, you know, and it's still done today. Religious communities do not allow any member of the religious community to die alone. When they're final of that stage, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whatever, there's always a member of the community there saying the prayers of the sick at that bedside. Always. Always. And back in the Middle Ages, this Reverend Mother of this convent, much beloved, much admired, I wouldn't know, respected, all that sort of stuff. Okay. And the old gal had one foot on the banana peel and the other on a grape. She's ready to go. So there's all the sisters around in a bit. And it always falls to the prior. You see, the prioress in the monastery, it's called the prior. It's a prioress. That's really the one who does the dirty work that the abbot or abbotess doesn't want to do. They correct everybody, give all the bad news and all that, okay? So it's always up to the abbess, the abbess, to lead right at the end there. And so the sisters are kind of nudging her and so on and so forth. And sisters, Mother Superior, excuse me, is there. And so one of the nuns says to one of the novices, they're just starting out, one of the flunkies, go and get Mother some milk. Go get it, maybe a little milk will help her. So it runs off, gets the milk. And while she's in the kitchen getting the milk and all this, another nun comes in and she says, let's put some of the spirits in here and she'll feel better. It'll ease everything. Come back. So there's Mother, halfway between heaven and earth, like that. And they give it to her. And she drinks it. And now Mother is, she's getting ready to go. And so she does this to the prioress. So, shh, sisters, shh. Mother's going to say her last words. Sister, whatever you do, don't kill the cow. Now, I don't know if that's true, but it sounds like it. You know what I'm saying? So it was very important to get the last words of the famous people, like they used to make death masks of many of the famous people. That's what they used to do. That was part of their honoring the persons. I mean, nothing sacrilegious or bad about that, but that's what they did. So we have that in Socrates, which you'll have to look up and find out what he said, because I'm not going to go over it.
One of the things he said was that a life not examined is a life not worth living.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah, the unexamined life is not worth living. That's right. That's right. And, again, and the reason it's not is because what is the beginning of wisdom for the Greeks? What is above the Apollonian oracle at Delphi? Simple little expression. Know what?
Know thyself.
Know thyself. Yeah. Know thyself. Yeah. Know thyself is above there. Know thyself. And what Jim brings up is when a group of Socrates' disciples visited the oracle at Delphi. The oracle at Delphi was where you asked a question and they would give you some wise answer. And the students were very, very proud and very happy to be in Socrates' company and all this kind of stuff, be accepted, taken in as a disciple. And they went to the oracle and they said, who is the wisest of all men in Athens? Who is the wisest? And the oracle said, the wisest of all men in Athens is Socrates. My God, the students are elated. Just like Yale beat Harvard in football. They go run, and they can't wait to get to Socrates to tell him. Well, much like the Blessed Mother was not too happy and thrilled, or at least didn't understand everything about the Annunciation, Socrates is tremendously upset. He said, no, it cannot be. No, you're wrong. And so he says, come on, let's go back. So off they go to the oracle at Delphi. And Socrates says, oracle, who is the wisest of men in Athens? And the oracle says, the wisest of all men in Athens is Socrates. And Socrates says, that cannot be, for I am Socrates. And I know that I know nothing. And the oracle says, that's why you are the wisest of all men, because you know that you know not. And think about it. The great philosopher John Wooden, former basketball coach of UCLA, said the most important things I learned is what I learned after I knew everything. You can't coach and you can't teach and you can't talk to a person who knows everything. What are you going to tell them? They know everything. Nothing. You can't learn anything new. Not if you're a walking encyclopedia. You've been around people like that. You know, no matter what. You bring up aerophysics, you think they got more degrees than the thermometer. Huh? You bring it up, there they go. And it's very difficult. It's almost impossible to coach anybody like that. In sports and anything else, you can't. What are you going to tell them? Nothing. It's a waste of time. I mean, I had parents who would ask me to, because I had coached high school tennis, girls tennis, for a number of years. And I'll say it anyway. The first Catholic school, girls Catholic school, to win the state championship was Dominican in tennis. We won the state championship. And I had some wonderful girls playing tennis. Very good. And I also had some even better players that I told them, you're not meant for this team. Which they went over really well with the parents. Yeah, and they said, my daughter's a wonderful tennis player. I said, she is. I said, she's a wonderful tennis player. She's a terrible student. I said, your daughter is going to infect my team with her. And this is about a team. It's not about your daughter. And when she learns that there's no I in team, she'll do much better. She'll be even better because she'll be a better person. Well, that, of course, didn't go over well either. It's not about that. Were they good tennis players? Oh, yes. Oh, God, yes. Yes. They would have infected my team. They would have. Because there'd have been all these rivalries and back and forth and all this kind of stuff. No. Thank you. Talent's not enough. It's also about character. About character. As an old professor at Tulane University told me, Maestri, see these grounds here? He said, I'll tell you right now, I can walk on these grounds and shake the trees, and all kind of smart people fall out of these trees. They're all over the place. He said, the problem is I'm still looking for all those rare people that have character. And he kept walking. He was right. He is right. Since going to heaven, I hope. and he was a wonderful. I've always been blessed with good teachers who the greatest thing they did, they didn't baby me, and they didn't worry about my feelings. You know, feelings is not the issue. You know, oh, you know, oh, let me see, how am I going to say this so that you don't get upset? Oh, God. Please, stop that. Stop that. Saint Teresa said, when you're choosing a spiritual director and you have a choice between sincerity and competence, always choose competence, because you can be sincerely wrong. Never dawns on people. They said, I'm sincere. Yeah, you're sincerely wrong, you boob. No, the question of your sincerity is not the issue. When you want something done, you want something that's competent. I don't care how you talk to me. Can you do the job? That's all I want to know. You don't have to, bring me flowers and, blow smoke up my cassock and all this kind of stuff. Can you do the job? That's all I want to know. That's it. Oh my God, we're in this age of sensitivity, and everybody's a brush burn. Everybody's walking by with a brush burn. God, everybody's screaming and yelling. Stop all that. Get all invested in this. How are you talking to me? No. And on certain things, that's not what it's about. Nobody's asking you to be crude and cruel. It's not the point. It's related to the activity. Obviously, if I'm talking to somebody at a bedside and so on and so forth like that, that's very different. And if I'm talking to somebody and trying to give them an instruction, and I see that they're used to being mediocre and very happy with being mediocre, and that's been wonderful, a wonderful ride, no, that ain't working. And so you can pout and sulk and carry on. I don't care. What I want you to do is to be better than you think you can be and better than you're settling on being. And I'm paying you the highest respect because I'm giving you my time and my energy. See? Because what I could do is just write you off. Another little pansy or another little flower thing, get out of here. No. If I'm going to waste my time, if I'm going to spend my time and all of that, then you know what? I don't care. If you're serious, don't give me all that stuff. He's this, he's that. Stop all that. Stop all that and grow up. The best teachers I ever had were people that were not concerned about my feelings. My daddy certainly wasn't. Because I was a wonderful child, you understand, so I really didn't have that problem. All right, let's go on. All right, so we have the death penalty that was administered and so on and so forth like that. And is there, I'm going to ask the final question, and then you're all going to go and decide, because I want to get on to Socrates. I want to summarize Socrates and get out of here and move on to Plato. Was there a point of law? Was there a point of law in which the prosecutor violated the law? Was there a point of law in your, because you could be disbarred, in my opinion. Was there a point of law that she, knowingly or unknowingly, and it doesn't matter either way, she's a lawyer, did she violate the law in handling Socrates' case? Right from the beginning, should it have been dismissed? Forget all the evidence, all this and that. I said a point in law, in Greek law, as it relates to Athens, that was violated. Is anyone aware of any? Anyone aware of any specific law that was violated in any of your reading or anything? Since you are the one who obviously hit it, are you aware of that?
No,
No.
because I know that Miletus, whatever, made the complaint with the witnesses, and whoever those witnesses were said that there was enough evidence to go to trial.
Yeah. No. You're still stuck on Miletus.
Oh, whatever.
I want the point of law.
I know.
Okay. All right. After the Peloponnesian War, okay, after the Peloponnesian War, there was an agreement codified, called the Agreement of Reconciliation. And it existed 403, 402. And this particular law of reconciliation agreement granted amnesty for anyone accused of any kind of crime related to the state prior to that particular period of time. Therefore, he could not have been charged. He could not have been charged. Because it's more than simply the time limits ran out, etc. He could not be grandfathered in. And yet he was charged during that particular period of time when the crime supposedly took place. The indictment was in 392. Didn't come to trial till 399 when they had the final disposition of the case. So on, all the machinations that went on. And therefore, he should not by point of law. Now, there's no indication that that was actually brought up at the trial, for whatever reason. Ignorance on the part of the attorney, or who's ever defending him, although in Socrates' case it's hard to say any of that because there's so little present there, which to deal with.
Too big of a figure.
Well,
I think because of the amnesty, he could not be charged for insurrection. So they wanted to get him for something, so they charged him with
Impiety and corruption of the youth. Because they couldn't bring up the insurrectionist that he...
But they really wanted to charge him.
yes. And so, again, does that not sound familiar to today? When we haul people into court without naming names on the most ridiculous things, embarrassing things in the world. And yet, the phrase that's going around is the weaponization of the judicial system, of the legal system today. Well, you see how, what does this have to do with anything? Well, open your newspaper and open your eyes for about 5 seconds and maybe you'd see. You know, what is it? Because you're dealing with human nature. You're dealing with human beings. And you see the same dynamic, you see the same thing today that you had then. Same thing. Have we learned anything? I don't know. I have no idea if we learned anything. But we see this repeated. Yeah. So what you do is you get something tangential to it, you put it together, and that's what you decide. So, closing statement, please. Pay attention.
All right, we have arrived at a pivotal moment in this trial, one that will determine the future of our city and the principles we hold dear. Socrates, a man known for his sharp intellect and relentless questioning, stands accused of two grave charges: corrupting the youth of Athens and impiety by introducing new deities and disrespecting the gods recognized by our state. From the outset, he has portrayed himself as a mere seeker of truth, engaging in philosophical dialogues to enlighten and educate. However, his methods are far from harmless. His incessant questioning, his probing into the nature of justice, virtue, and piety are not simply academic exercises. Instead, they serve to undermine the very foundations of our society. Parents have recounted how their once respectful and obedient children have become contentious and defiant after falling under Socrates' influence. These young minds, instead of being guided by the wisdom of their elders and the traditions of our city, have been led to question and doubt everything that they once held sacred. This is not merely a matter of intellectual debate. The erosion of respect for authority and tradition among our youth poses a direct threat to the stability and unity of Athens. A society cannot thrive when its younger generation is taught to challenge and disregard the values and principles that have sustained it. Socrates' teachings have sown seeds of discontent and rebellion, fostering a spirit of insolence that, if left unchecked, will unravel the very fabric of our community. His impiety is a matter of profound concern. Our city has long been under the protection and guidance of the gods. The rituals, festivals, and religious practices we uphold are not mere formalities. They are integral parts to our identity and our prosperity. Socrates, however, has shown blatant disregard for these traditions. By introducing new deities and questioning the existence and authority of our traditional gods, he has committed acts of sacrilege that strike at the heart of our religious and cultural life. His questioning of God's nature and his introduction of novel spiritual concepts have led many to doubt and abandon the sacred beliefs that have guided our city for generations. This is not just a theological debate. It is a direct challenge to the divine order that sustains us. In a time when we not only rely on the favor of the gods for our well-being and security, Socrates' actions are not only irreverent but dangerous. We must also recognize that Socrates has been given ample opportunity to defend his actions, and yet his defense has only confirmed the prosecution's case. His eloquence and rhetorical skills cannot obscure the fact that his teachings and beliefs have had a corrosive effect on our youth and our religious life. He has not shown remorse or a willingness to align with the values and traditions that have made Athens great. Instead, he has persisted in his defiance, placing his own beliefs above the well-being of our city. The laws of Athens are just and clear. They exist to protect our society from those who their actions or ideas would seek to harm it. Socrates' teachings and his impiety are a direct threat to the stability, unity, and moral integrity of our city. It is our duty to uphold these laws and ensure that those who violate them are held accountable. Ladies and gentlemen, we ask you to consider the undeniable impact of Socrates' actions. By finding him guilty, you'll be affirming the importance of our traditions, the sanctity of our religious practices, and the necessity of protecting our youth from harmful influences. Justice demands that we hold Socrates accountable and ensure that the integrity of Athens remains unchallenged. In rendering your verdict, you will be safeguarding the values and principles that have made our city strong and prosperous. Let us not allow one man's philosophical pursuits to endanger the well-being of our community. Let us stand firm in our commitment to the justice and the preservation of our cherished way of life, both politically and in religious regards. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jim?
Men of Athens, the 500 members of this jury, and other citizens of the great democracy that is Greece. I, Socrates, consider myself to be a citizen not only of Athens, but of the whole world. Many of you on the jury know of me, either personally or by my reputation. I was born in Athens in the year 469 BC. I am a simple man without many material possessions. I come from a family of modest means, certainly not a family of nobility or of great wealth. My father was a stonemason. My mother was a midwife. I served with distinction in wars against Sparta. I also served in the governing assembly, which is responsible for determining military strategy and legislation. A friend of mine once asked the oracle at Delphi, "Who is the wisest man?" And he replied, "There is no man wiser than Socrates. Socrates is the most free, most upright, and wisest of men." But I wondered, how can this be? I am Socrates. I am very conscious that I am not wise at all. But surely the oracle does not lie. It is not legitimate to do so. So I investigated, interviewing those with a high reputation for wisdom, such as politicians, poets, and writers, as well as those with little reputation for wisdom. I was surprised to find that those with the highest reputation were nearly the most efficient, while those thought to be inferior were more knowledgeable. I finally realized that the oracle was saying that I am the wisest because I do not say that I know something when I actually know nothing, whereas other men, when they claim that they know something, actually do not know. I appear to you today accused of the crime of corrupting our youth, and also of the far more horrible crime of being an atheist, that I do not recognize the gods recognized by the state, and that I even invent new gods. I can assure you that these are all lies, that nothing is further from the truth. My accusers are charging me with what they either do not know directly or with fabricated lies. I could have fled to avoid trial, but I am here today not to apologize for these supposed crimes, but to honor the justice system, to defend myself, and to expose the corruption of many of the elitists of the state who hate and fear me. My accusers are more interested in things like power, wealth, and physical pleasure than they are about their own souls. They hate me, they fear me, and they accuse me because they consider me to be a threat to their way of life. They slander me because they cannot explain away their own evil. Many of you already have a negative impression of me because of my appearance, my bulging eyes, my pot belly, my stub nose, which makes me look like a pig, and the old clothes which I wear. But my reputation has even been more tarnished, primarily by two groups of accusers. Many of you remember that many of the statues of the god Hermes were desecrated in Athens. This was considered a serious sacrilege, a mockery against our religion. One of my students, Alciades, was implicated in this blasphemous act. And because he was one of my students, I was also under suspicion. Because of this incident, and because I have said that I study all things in the sky and below on the earth, these early accusers have asserted that I do not believe in the gods. They probably already have negatively been influenced, many of you sitting on the jury today, and I have no way to defend myself against these early accusers because they are not here today that I may cross-examine them. And fighting against them is like fighting with shadows. This early group of accusers has been around for a long time. They've been very suspicious of me and have constantly spread rumors and gossip about me. The second group consists of the accusers who are actually here today. I acknowledge that I am ignorant in many ways, but by their testimony, the second group of accusers have shown that they're even more ignorant than I am. The one who has actually charged me is Meletus, a poet. I hardly remember this guy. He has presented absolutely no direct evidence of the things he is accusing me of. He is only a puppet of the powerful politician, Anytus. Anytus and I have frequently criticized each other, and Anytus is the driving force behind my prosecution. There is also the orator Lycon, whom I also hold in low regard. He is less concerned about the pursuits of truth than in using his oratorical skills to obtain power and influence. These accusers, these slanderers, say that I am an evildoer, a curious person who searches into all things in the sky and on the earth, that I make the worse appear to be the better cause, and that I teach these doctrines to others, particularly the youth. I have no idea how these three accusers have affected your judgment of me. But as for me, I was almost carried away in spite of myself. So persuasively did they speak. And yet hardly anything of what they said is true. First is to the charge of corrupting our youth by indoctrinating and teaching subversive views. During my cross of Miletus, he made a fool of himself. He agreed that it is of the utmost importance that the youth should be as good as possible. I asked him who was able to teach the youth and make them better. Miletus basically asserted that it is anyone in Athens except for me. But why would I alone want to do evil to them? If I taught them to do evil to others, they might also do evil to me. It would make absolutely no sense for me to teach them evil. Plus, I have no personal wisdom to teach or to indoctrinate. And therefore, I cannot be held responsible for any of the actions that may have been committed by any of the youth that heard me speak. I have merely been challenging them by asking them questions and listening carefully to their responses. And then we have discourse with one another about the issues being considered in order to help each other have a better understanding of the issues and to help us examine our own lives. Now I turn to the more serious charge of atheism. Melita's first charged that I do not recognize the gods recognized by the state, and that I even invent new gods in their place. But then Melita's then contradicted himself by asserting that I believe in no gods at all. But how can I invent new gods and at the same time not believe in any gods? This charge is based on fabrication, their suspicions and their hatred of me, and their fear that I am a threat to their way of life, their power, and their greed. I have not been challenging the gods recognizing the state or suggesting new gods to take their place. I have simply been asking questions in order to get a better understanding. My focus is how to live a good and virtuous life. Not just to live, but to live a life that is good, meaningful, and virtuous. There is only one good, and that is knowledge. There is only one evil, and that is ignorance. Virtue is knowledge. Knowledge is obtained by a lifetime of asking questions and listening carefully to the responses, and having dialogue with one another. You should question everything all the time. Admit what you do not know, and never stop seeking knowledge and vision. Understanding yourself, acknowledging what one does not know, is the beginning of knowledge. Most of the battles we fight are the battles with our own heart, within our own being. People should care less about their bodies and possessions and more about their souls. Wealth does not bring goodness, but goodness brings wealth of our souls. We must examine our lives continually. We must question everything all the time. The unexamined life is a life not worth living. Virtue and knowledge are intimately connected. People who know what is right will do what is right. And people who do what is right are virtuous. To be virtuous, one must possess all 5 of these characteristics: truth, courage, justice, wisdom, and happiness. These virtues are worth dying for. People who are virtuous are happier and more fulfilled than people who are not. And this is the goal of human life. My main focus is how to gain a better understanding of how I myself and others can live a good and virtuous life. By living a life of virtue and knowledge, I believe that I can set an example for others to follow, and that I can help to create a better society for everyone. My accusers have not presented any factual evidence against me. They have only presented hearsay and their own misguided opinions. I am not guilty of the charges made against me. I am merely a simple philosopher who seeks truth and justice. I ask you, the jury, to do the right thing and find me not guilty of these ridiculous charges against me.
I think that Jim and Lisa deserve tremendous appreciation. That was two of the best statements I've heard in quite some time put together. Beautifully presented in compact, concise form, given the fact that they have so little to work with from what's there, and to be able to articulate that, I think is truly commendable, and beyond that, shows a great deal of respect for you all, that they took the time, because that wasn't written in a second, by any stretch of the imagination, and presented that way. I commend both of you very much, and say well done. Well done. Now, we would like to, we have 6 people here, I think. 4, maybe about 6, 2, 4, 6. If you could go over there for 5 minutes, no longer. Make a decision and just say guilty or not guilty. And you can pick a foreman who'll speak in case you want to say something. My vote is already in for who I think the foreman should be, but anyway, you can, after all, it is a woman's world, so, but you can go, Sandy. Anyway, so if you could go do that for just a few minutes, and we'll see where we're. I want to congratulate, really appreciate both of you for that. They were that was very well done. Very well done. That was better than most I've heard in graduate school. Okay. Now, who is the spokesperson? Oh, okay. Sorry, I tried. They didn't see. They didn't want it. Oh, yes, you did. Go ahead. Yes, please. Thank you so much.
Bring the members of the jury.
Not guilty. Not guilty. May I ask you to vote? What was the number? Unanimous. Did anyone start off with the preconceived notion of guilty? So all of you went in with the idea that he was innocent till proven guilty, or that he was innocent, that was it? What is it that swayed you all to not guilty? Was there one thing? I mean, maybe not. I don't know. I'm asking you that.
There wasn't enough evidence.
Lack of evidence. What would have swayed you, if anything, to voting guilty? Yeah, to vote him guilty. The lady here says it's a lack of evidence. So what I'm asking you is, what kind of evidence would have, if any, would have moved you to finding him guilty? What did you need to have, hand in glove, to say guilty, if anything? Maybe some people went in, he's innocent, I don't care what happens. But was there anything that would have swayed you? Like what?
More witnesses?
Seem to have that any type of vendetta against the state. You just keep asking logical why questions. Why do you think?
Was there anything defective in Lisa's presentation?
A lack of people to come forward to prove.
Well, in her presentation, did she do the best she could do? In other words, you got to play the hand that you get in poker, and you have to dance with the one what brung you. Even if you see a better looking girl, you know, you're stuck with this one. So the question is, did you find anything that was, in other words, she didn't prosecute competently or well, given what she had.
I personally was glad that I had the part of defender,
Why?
because she didn't really have much to
work
deal
with.
with.
She didn't have anything to work with.
That's right.
It's all hearsay.
That
She presented what she had well.
yes, she did, and I think that that's important.
Yeah.
If you're gonna fight with a gun, you got to have bullets.
She did not present what the actual witnesses did say. Now, there were three of them that I mentioned, and she didn't discuss those at all.
But weren't the first two not allowed to be brought out in the thing? I think that's what Lisa told us to begin with.
Of the two that caused the revolution, yes, that couldn't be brought up in time.
Correct. And I wonder why.
That was because of the amnesty.
That was because of the reconciliation.
Right.
Oh, okay, so that made it even better because it was not right.
Yes,
They
and
had fought the Spartans for a number of years and lost. And then finally, they were able to overthrow the Spartans.
that's right.
And so, people didn't want to, they didn't want the status quo to be upset. They were actually fearful that there was a threat to democracy. And they were frightened by anybody that they thought might be sympathetic for the Spartans. Yeah, it was a threat to their power. They wanted to stay in power. But it was an easy thing, though, for to convince a lot of people. Because they had lost before. They had suffered through their losses to the Spartans. And now the Spartans had finally been overcome. They had their democracy back. And they didn't want to lose that.
And also other than Plato defending him, he had the opportunity to defend himself and or even have his family come and plead his case or plead for leniency, and he didn't do it.
Yes. What you had is basically you had a on the surface you had a reluctant defendant. But if you go sub rosa or subterranean, his idea was to give a witness in order, even to the point of death, to call into question what was going on in Athens. Yes, by staying there. And I'm not leaving. I'm not taking the plea bargain. I'm not drinking the hemlock. I'm not doing any of this kind of stuff. You're going to have to do it. You're going to have to do it. I'm not doing it. And they told Martin Luther King, millennia later, when he was arrested in the Alabama jail, the famous Alabama letter that he sent, they said, go ahead, get out, you can go, you're free. He said, nope, not leaving. Nope, I broke the law. And therefore, what did he do? See, and I think that this is an important point in the post-game thing. The relationship between law and morality. Is everything legal moral? That's the question, you see? Now, which brings up the thorny question of who wrote one of the most famous essays in America on civil disobedience, back in the 19th century. Considered a bit of a weirdo. Who? No, but that's you're moving up there. Yeah, it's in that vein. But he was a kind of a recluse. Who was the famous recluse of the 19th century in America? Come on, think about it. No, he's in the 20th century. Yeah. That's all right. A lot of times I go to the wrong pew in the right church. So, what famous guy? Think of water. Think of water. New England. 19th century. You're in the wrong century too. See what you started?
It's getting late, Paul. It's not.
It's shank of the evening. Huh? Yeah. Recluse. Henry David Thoreau. She cheated. And what did he write? His famous writing from what was the pond? Walden Pond. And he was being forced, in his opinion, to pay a tax. And he said, no, I'm paying it. And he wrote this essay on civil disobedience. Now you have in front of you your catechism, I think, somewhere. And I think your catechism, again, I have to go scowl for this, but there is in your catechism, see, because Catholics are very uneasy over this topic, you know that. They are. They're very uneasy about this. For a very simple reason, and it's still with us, contrary to what you hear. Catholics have always been an oppressed religious minority in America. You need to get that through your head. Catholics have always been an oppressed religious minority in America from the very beginning. Who came over here first? Yeah, and what were they? Catholics? No. Well, of course not. Of course not. And how did the Protestants view the Catholics and the papacy and the Pope?
Very negatively.
Very negative. In fact, John Adams, brilliant man. Everybody couldn't stand him because his temperament was very, very difficult. He always thought he was the brightest person in the room. Very often he was. But he let you know that he knew. He needed you to tell him about Socrates, because he didn't buy any of that. Okay. Adams constantly referred to as the great enemy, the papist. The papist. That is the people of the Pope. And all of this kind of stuff. He just writes on this kind of stuff. Everything. Yeah. Kennedy had to go groveling in front of the Southern Baptist in Dallas, if you remember, or Houston, or somewhere in Texas. Anyway, he went there. And he had to assure them that no matter if he became president, his religion would have absolutely nothing to do with anything. No law, no nothing. It wouldn't infect him. In other words, he would be able to, as if you take off a coat and put on a coat. Now I am a Catholic. Now I am a secularist. I'm an American, and this and that kind of stuff. Oh God, yes, yeah, that was a big deal, Okay, because, and I remember I told you guys, I was in the 6th grade, and when Kennedy ran against Nixon for the presidency, and every child, not every child, every classroom at St. Peter and Paul School, kindergarten through 8th grade, and we didn't have all this foolishness that you have now, junior high and all of this kind of stuff. You stayed there the whole 8 years unless the nuns kicked you out, then you went somewhere else. Every classroom was mandated to bring a television because the election was on, because this was an historic election. and every hour, one of the classes was designated to walk right over to St. Peter and Paul Church, which was right next to it, and go say prayers for 10, 15 minutes that Kennedy would win and come back. Okay, that's what we had to do. Well, it came down so close, they had to have recounts and all of this. And then, remember Nixon. I know we hate Nixon. I don't hate Nixon. In one of the great moments that's very little reported on, it was much contested, and Nixon was getting a great deal of pressure on him to bring this to court, much like Gore v. Bush in 2000. And this had been right after the difficulty with the Russians. Remember the U-2 with Gary Powers and all of this? And then you had the Cuban Missile Crisis developing and all this kind of stuff going on. And Nixon said, nope, Kennedy won. I'm not going to put the country through this. We're at a dangerous time, and we can't have division in the country in the face of what's happening, so I concede the election. Nobody reports that. All they know is Watergate, because they're stupid. But okay, people are more complex than their one bad moment, and they're a lot worse than their best moment. Okay, so if we can keep that in mind. But anyway, and if you remember on Inauguration Day, which was that January, every classroom had to have a television for the inauguration, because this was historic, the first Catholic. First Catholic, you might remember that. All of you should remember that. And there we were sitting in Sister Felix's class. Now, Sister Felix was an Irish Maronite sister, but she was from Belfast, so she really couldn't stand the British, and she couldn't really stand the Protestants. Okay, she couldn't. Well, my mother was from Ireland. When my father wanted to get her upset and angry, he would refer to Londonderry. Please don't ever call it Londonderry. It's Derry. It has nothing to do with Londonderry. There is no such place as Londonderry. But okay. But anyway, so we're sitting there watching this, and if you remember when Kennedy is giving the inauguration address on a podium like this, remember that? It was a freezing day, beautiful, clear day, everything was freezing. They had top coats and all of this kind of big hats on. Remember Kennedy riding down but okay, he didn't have it obviously when he was speaking. And he's standing here, and he's giving the inaugural address, and all of this kind of stuff. And as we're watching there in the 6th grade like this, smoke starts to come up from the podium. And it's coming, and coming, and coming. Remember that. And they had people coming over. There's a fire coming up from the podium. The podium had caught on fire. Well, you should go back and remember it. Yeah, I should say so. I know, I just lost 2. Yeah, yes, it's a moment of my senility. And in that podium, the thing is going up, and Kennedy had a pause, and the people came from the side, etc., and they went in, and they quickly came on and said that it was an electrical because they had a heater. That's how cold it was. It was so cold. But the heater was there built into the podium, and it blew the air up so that the president wasn't standing out there in this sub-freezing weather. And they had but I say, it's a beautiful day, but you could still see all the snow that had been still left. But anyway, it's a beautiful scene. And here it comes. Sister Felix, that was her name, without missing a beat. She said, you see that? That electrician was a Protestant. That's what she said. So I, being impressionable, went home and told my mother that a Protestant had set the podium on fire when the president was speaking. And my mother said, no, who told you that? Sister Felix. I knew that was right. Yes, that's right. Yes, that's it. You could never criticize the priest and never criticize the nuns. They may have done it when you left, but in front of you, you would be, you'd get it again. You'd get it again. And so that was it. And so for the longest time, I went around thinking the Protestant electrician had set the podium, because after all, Sister Felix said this. My mother confirmed it, And when I remember sitting at the table there, because we had to eat at 5 o'clock, because that's when my daddy got home. They had to eat at 5 o'clock. I'm sitting there. And my mother said this, and I said, yeah, I saw it. And I said, what do you think? My daddy went, we have any water? He wasn't stupid, He wasn't stupid, Happy wife is a happy life. So forget that. So anyway, but that was a big deal. And when my relatives came over from Ireland and landed in the early parts of the 20th century, and they had to go through Ellis Island, and not only them, but also the Italians. Italians didn't. One of the slurs of Italian is a WOP. W-O-P. And you still have WOP salads. Even in Louisiana, you have WOP salad. Well, what is WOP? WOP is without papers. In other words, so many of these children and people came over on the boat because they were in steerage, or any way they could get on a boat that was coming over here. Their relatives were over here already, or they were coming to be the first ones in to set up for them, and so on and so forth. And they didn't have papers. So they were immediately put in quarantine in Ellis Island. Minimum 14 days. So when I hear all this foolishness going on today about immigration and borders and everything, people don't have a clue. And so you had these children, and they would be put in with adults and everything else to make sure you didn't have diseases and everything coming into the country because you were without papers. And that's where the Catholic Church became so effective, because you had these ethnic groups, and among the people who were there right away were the Irish, Catholic, Polish, German, etc. Clergy were right there. And so you had Little Italy. You look at in Chicago, there's more Poles in Chicago than any other place other than in Warsaw, concentrated there, or of Polish descent. Here in New Orleans, you had the Hibernians. You had Hibernia Bank. Well, the Hibernians is an Irish organization, something like the Elks. And so you have those kind of groups along the line. We had St. Mary's Italian Church. Holy Trinity was for German. St. Peter and Paul was for the Irish. You had these kind of churches that were there along ethnic lines. St. Cecilia was Italian. You had those kind of things. And they catered to the specific thing, but always with the idea of assimilation, to be assimilated. Now, Catholics were always looked upon with suspicion. Andrew Greeley, one of the greats, just fabulous priest, last century, died tragically. he wrote a preface to one of the books that I've written, and he was just wonderful, terrific man. Chicago priest, and he wrote a little book called Our Ugly Little Secret. And the ugly little secret is the anti-Catholicism that went underground as we moved into the middle of the 20th century. It became more on cat's paws, more hidden. And it was the old Protestant elite, mainly the Episcopalians, and that line, that did not want any inroads of Catholicism or any of that into academia, into any of the business things, and so on like that. And so what did you have? You had the parochial schools. Parochial schools were the answer to anti-Catholicism. But one of the chief things that Catholicism did was it demanded assimilation. And your parents did, and your family did. Yes, we want to honor, the old friend, new friends are silver, old friends are gold, care for the new, but treasure the old. Yes, they were the old country, and a lot of those customs they wanted. But for their children, they wanted them to become Americanized, learn the language, rise in the American system, become Americanized. And the idea of becoming an American citizen was a proud thing, and so on and so forth like that. That you had. Catholics always labored under the idea we have to be more American than anybody else. We have to be more American because we're under this cloud of suspicion, because we're in the alien country. Catholicism was a ghetto. Ghetto simply means a segregated, cut-off space from the mainstream. We were a ghetto minority religion. We have since become the most populous religion, and so on. So that always was the case. So any idea of civil disobedience by Catholics, that was very dangerous, because all it did was inflame these hate groups like the Know-Nothings. The Know-Nothing Party was they were sometimes referred to as the nativists. These were the people who could trace their relatives, Protestant relatives, all the way back to some place in Europe, mainly England or Scotland or those kind of places. And also hated Catholics for the Ku Klux Klan, couldn't stand Catholics. Oh my God, hated Catholics. And all of that sort of stuff. So any discussion of that, but I'm going to see if I can find it quickly, which I probably cannot. I just want to, we're going to leave. Where's my stuff? Lisa has grabbed steal my book here. I want to look up, it's somewhere under social thing. I just came up. It's let's see, civil, probably not here, but let me see. CIV. No, it's probably under the social teaching of the church. And there is a section on it, but I don't want to waste too much time. Yeah, where is that? Okay, what does that, say it again?
2420.
2420. Okay, let me look at it real quick, because I don't want to, I know we're too long. 2420. Social doctrine of the church. Social justice. Justice among nations. I don't want to know that. Love for the poor. I don't know about that. I'm not.
2420 says the church makes a moral judgment about economic and social matters.
Yeah, I'm looking for the. Yeah. You got a phone? You got a phone? You have the Google. Ask them Catechism of Catholic Church. Catechism of the Catholic Church. Civil disobedience. That'll get it to us right away. I didn't think we'd go in this direction, but anyway, let me see. So I was looking at it not too long ago, actually. Probably be under law. It would be under laws in the civil order. Let's see. Authority, common good. 463. You have that, right?
Civil disobedience of both conscious Catholic.
Do you have the catechism?
2416.
2416. Let's see what that says.
Okay.
2416.
It's animals are God's creatures, the souls and of his providential plan. 2473, 2474, 2422.
No. You put up civil disobedience?
Yes.
No, that's not it.
2473 is martyrdom.
No.
73 is martyrdom.
Yeah, no, let's see. Where am I here? 2240. Yes, where is that?
2240.
That's it. 2242. Thank you, Lisa. 2242. See, 2242. Yes. Citizen is obliged in conscience not to follow the directives of civil authorities when they are contrary to the demands of the moral order, fundamental rights of persons, the teaching of the gospel. Refusing obedience to civil authorities when their demands are contrary to those of an upright conscience finds its justification and distinction between serving God and serving the political community, rendered to cease. See, that's it right there. Now, if you look at 2243, the question is always brought up, the question of violence. Armed resistance to oppression by political authorities is not legitimate unless all of the following conditions are met. Okay, so is everybody there who's wanting to see this? 2243. Okay. Number one, there is certain grave and prolonged violation of fundamental rights. All other means of redress have been exhausted. Such resistance will not provoke worse disorders. There is well-founded hope of success, and it is impossible, not reasonably, to foresee any better solution. So in other words, these are the conditions that must be met before you can engage in violent or resistant or arms against an authority. In other words, because our first move is not to lop the ear off of the guy who comes to arrest Jesus. Jesus says to him, put your sword back in. Don't you know I can get a whole legion of angels to take care of me? I don't need you. You're only making matters worse. And besides, you don't understand, I came to do my Father's will, to die on the cross, and you've been trying for 3 years not to get me to even come here. So get with the program, Peter. Okay? So that's there. The final little thing I'll say to you is remember that in the Summa Theologica, St. Thomas Aquinas says that there are 4 kinds of law. 4 kinds. 4 levels of law. St. Thomas Aquinas in the Summa Theologica. 4 levels of law, huh? Most of this you're familiar with. Eternal law, divine law, natural law, and positive law. Okay. The eternal law is the law in the mind of God. It's God in communion with and conversation with himself. Okay? Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And that law is the right ordering of all being, etc. And it is God's law within himself, within his own being. Now, without these, could anyone here know this law? Without any of these 3 levels of law, could anyone know this law?
Only if you believe that God has put this into the penalty.
Without these. Without these. No, you can't. Why? You are not eternal. You are finite, limited. Okay? You are a contingent being. You don't have to be. And in fact, when you die, the world will go on quite nicely without you, believe it or not. There's some people who don't believe that. They believe when they die, the world is ending with them. No, but it's okay. Die. So no, we can't. Well, you see the problem. Then, how could we expect to be good? If you, in other words, see this pen? Okay. Now, if you can tell me what hand it's in, right or left, I will give you $100. Right or left? I'll give you another try. You know what's going to happen.
Yes.
You ain't getting it. You ain't getting it. So, if I have the eternal law, and I'm expecting you to be good, because you know it, and I keep doing this, or I say, and you say to me, well, what is the law? And I say, I'm not telling you. Remember, we just got finished a trial. Lisa was up first because she had to give you the charges that were being brought. The famous book by Kafka called The Trial became a very fine movie starring the psycho guy, Tony Perkins, from Psycho. See, he's the guy there, and the whole thing revolves around he's arrested and taken over, and he keeps asking, well, what did I do? What's the charges? What happened? And the whole thing is he's never told. He's never told. He's found guilty, and they're standing there, and it's just talk, but there's never any charges. Well, if God expects us to be good and holy and all of that, and by the way, I'm not telling you what good and holy or show you or anything else. Good luck, because you got to know what's in my mind. In your little peanut mind, you have to tell me what's in the divine mind. That makes no sense. It's impossible, because then God would not be a good and loving God. God would be a deceitful, hateful, and cruel God, because God would take delight in either our damnation or our frustration, because we could never know it. We would never know it. Well, what is the divine law? The divine law is the law of revelation. Specifically, in the 10 Commandments, the Scriptures, and so on. It's called the divine law because it originates in God, but can a human being know the divine law? Well, I hope so. If you know the 10 Commandments, and the Ten Commandments are related to the divine law, I mean, it's, this, you don't go to Harvard for this, huh? You see it right there. Yes, of course I can know it. I can know it. Now, doesn't mean I'm going to keep it. In fact, I probably break it more than I keep it. But I know it. Now, supposing, and it's possible, I am never really exposed to the Bible or to the divine law. That's possible. And you say, well, that's not possible in America. Of course it is. Of course it is. You can grow up in a house that never talks about God, religion, and that kind of stuff. You can go to a school that never talks about God or religion. It's called a public school. You don't do any of that kind of stuff. So you're having any exposure, any kind of concept of this, non-existent. It still doesn't leave you off the hook, because you have the natural law. That's the law written on the heart of every human being. It's the law of right and wrong, and it's known by natural reason. Known by natural reason. Known by natural reason. So it's the natural law. It's the fundamental law written on the heart of every human being, given by God. And then the last one you have is the positive law. The positive law is the laws we make up in society, the civil laws, the criminal laws, etc., legislative laws. Now, this is the end point right here. For law to truly be a law, it cannot be a violation of any of these. Cannot be. If it is not a law. Now, Mr. Aquinas says it's not a law. It's simply an expression of will or power, but it's not grounded in reason. It's not connected to a higher law. Therefore, is it legal to kill babies? Of course it is legal. Well, are you living in this real world? Well, it's defined as legal. Yeah, well, that was my question. No, don't rush ahead with your Catholicism. Okay? It's legal. Go to California. Go tell them it's not legal. Okay? That's not going to work. Of course it is. And in fact, the latest survey this week indicates that now there's been a tremendous increase in blue states of abortion and a tremendous decrease in red states. Why? The laws are different. The laws are different. Now, so the idea here is that you have a law in place which purport, and it's done through the democratic, that's why all this idea that somehow the democratic process is somehow the absolution, the baptism, confirmation, holy orders, and everything on something is nonsense. Is nonsense. People can vote for some terrible things. How did Hitler get into power? He got in right through the front door. He got in through the electoral process, through the democratic process. Morality is not determined by counting noses. And somehow say, well, it's all right, everybody voted for it. I don't care if 1 million people vote for it. Doesn't make it right. We have to consult the moral law. Once upon a time, it was perfectly legal and wonderful and terrific. Okay? Women, okay, y'all want to really get okay? All right, here's your chance. You can't vote. You can't participate in anything. They voted for it, the men, because you couldn't vote. See, you were not allowed to vote whether you could vote. The men who were voting voted that you could not vote. Okay? Now that sounds fair, huh? Okay. Of course not. That's the point. But was it the vote in the system? Yes. But I don't know if anybody, well, what happened? people's consciousness and conscience began to come to the point where it said, this is wrong. And then you had a few, look, there's no change without pressure. Try it with your water pipes. You don't get change without pressure. And so people's consciousness began to develop, and that's what they began to question, etc., much like Socrates, etc. So anyway, so the idea of civil disobedience has always been difficult for Catholics because we had to be more Catholic than anybody else to prove that we really were Americans. But it should not obscure the idea that you can have laws that are voted upon, passed in the Congress, 100 senators vote for it, 430 representatives vote for it, the president signs it, the Supreme Court says fine, and it can still be an immoral law, and one that in our conscience we should not obey. We should not obey. In some states, you can kill people, called euthanasia, but they don't want to call it that. It's called mercy killing, or death with compassion. Notice George Orwell, we take the words and we put them nicely packaged so that they never are really what they are. You see, evil never comes directly, because if we saw evil in its evilness, we would never choose it. The first sin, it was pleasing to the eye, good for eating. You never saw the consequence of it. You didn't see the consequences of it. No. Evil must always be packaged so that it's attractive. It's got to be. Because few, if any of us, unless we're really corrupted at the core, ever choose evil directly. Anyway, so that's why Catholics are very, very hesitant, among many other reasons. But this is kind of the thumbnail thing, because we had to run around proving ourselves and so on. Okay, we're done. And I just want to, again, thank Lisa and thank Jim for very, very good. And I think it was a very good thing coming together and doing that and having this discussion like this. All right. In the name of the Father. Oh, yeah, at the trial. Yeah, the verdict, the final tab was, let's see, I have it here. The final tab was 280 guilty, 220 innocent. And then they had a vote for the penalty, and if you got more votes in that phase for guilty, for the death penalty, than you got for innocent or guilty, you would get that vote, you would get that penalty. So they voted guilty, they got more votes for the death penalty, which was higher than the votes for guilty. So death penalty was given. That's how they did it. Correct. For the death penalty. Yeah. Correct. Correct. Because you had people probably saying, well, if he's guilty, and that's the thing, and what is the punishment for that? It's the death penalty. So therefore, I'm a person who follows the law. So I'm going to vote yes. Okay, then if we voted for guilty, and that's the penalty, then I'm not going to vote not to give him the penalty. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go with what the violation has been rendered, and I'm going to vote for that. I'm a vote for it.
No, the hemlock, he drank that voluntarily.
That's correct. And he wanted to drink it voluntarily. In order.
Got the death penalty and they didn't agree to drink it voluntarily. What happened?
What happened was, it was a terrible embarrassment to the state because it weakened the foundation of the state as legitimate. That you had this person saying that the state... Socrates is not saying that the kind of government that they had was corrupt in its form. What you had was a defective people running it, etc., and that kind of stuff. Okay? So that's what you had. So he was not a revolution, he was not an anarchist, he was none of those kind of things. And he was not an insurrectionist. What he was a seeker of truth who asked questions and who challenged when he saw an unvirtuous system in place. And how do you change it when it's not simply a person, but it is a whole group of people that are together? And as you kept indicating, if I'm not mistaken, they wanted to hold on to their privilege. They liked their ant nest. And when somebody went to kick it, the ants were going to bite you. And that's what happened. That's what happened. So now we'll pray. No. No, it was very, because again, it was a mixture of all these kind of things, many of them acid and corrosive. So if you wanted to drink it, but notice please, you administered it yourself. You administered it. You died at your own hand, which was a sign of nobility and a sign of commitment, and you wanted to die on your own terms. That's why many of the old Italians in the mafia, when their numbers were up, or they wanted to die, or they knew they were going to get whacked, okay, because they had violated some part of the mafia code. What they would do is take all of their possessions, their wedding ring, their valuables, and all this kind of stuff, gather it together, leave it in their house, leave it in a safe place in the house. They had a kind of understanding with the wife that she would be taken care of by the mafia. In other words, he died honorably, so she would always be protected. Never want for anything. She would be fine. And they would make a tub of hot water. The person would undress and be nude, get into the tub, and slit their wrist. That's how they did it. And when you really want to kill yourself, you do not cut yourself like this. It's ineffective. Anybody who does this doesn't really want to kill himself. Everybody knows that. Because it coagulates too quickly. What you always have to do is this. You do it like this. You'll bleed really fast. When you go vertical down, like this. That's correct. That's correct. And that's what you did. And that's what you did. That's what you did. And then they would go in, take the body, bring it to an Italian mortuary, all this was set up, you understand. And you would be given an Italian, usually Catholic, funeral, and so on from the church. With all the flowers, and all the people would come who had pushed you into this. But it was very simple. You were told from the beginning, you don't get out of this. This is the life you have chosen. This is the life you've chosen. And this is what goes with it. And it's a hard thing to get into the mafia, to get to be a made man, into that. And very hard process. And there's a code that is followed. There's a code. And one of which is you don't quit, like priesthood used to be. or in the monastery. You're in. And this is the life you've chosen. And you don't just say, well, I don't want to renew my option. No. It doesn't work that way. And you're expected to do the honorable thing. You just die. And they come in after a while, clean up everything, ship you off, and there you are. But that goes all the way back to the Greeks. And the Romans, too. Romans adopted that, too, after Rome had conquered Greece. Anyway, let's say a prayer. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Almighty God, we offer you glory, praise, and thanksgiving for this time together. We thank you for all your indwelling presence, your graces, your gifts. Thank you for this time together. And, O Holy Spirit, please continue to touch our minds and hearts, that indeed we may grow ever deeper in knowledge and love of you, Almighty God, love of the church and commitment to the church, and care for others. We commend to you tonight Betty and Gary as they navigate through this